Question number 5, Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. Will the recent rise in the New Zealand dollar to a post-float high on the trade-weighted index cause job losses among non-primary exporters and import substitution businesses?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, it's too simplistic to conclude that, although of course it's possible. Jobs come and go for all sorts of reasons, including winning or losing customers, the success or failure of competitors, and changes in market prices, which can, of course, be influenced by the exchange rate. The impact a high exchange rate does make it more difficult for exporters to be profitable, but it is clear that over the past 6 or 7 years, despite a rising and high exchange rate, many New Zealand exporters have remained or become profitable and are growing. This is demonstrated by for instance, the PMI for the manufacturing sector, which has showed that since 2009, most of the time the manufacturing sector has been growing. More recent statistics suggest that our firms are fairly resilient. New job listings on seek.co.nz are up 4.9% compared to March last year, and Trade Me reports job vacancies in the first quarter were up 5% on a year ago.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Does he agree with the IMF and the Reserve Bank Governor that the New Zealand dollar is overvalued and hindering the rebalancing of the New Zealand economy? And if so, what measures will he take to reduce the level and volatility of the New Zealand dollar?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes, I do tend to agree with the Reserve Bank and the IMF on this matter, and I also agree with both of them that there is no easy or obvious fix to a relatively high exchange rate. That high exchange rate is driven by the relative health of the New Zealand economy compared to other developed economies. And I would expect the exchange rate is likely to come down when other economies stop printing money and their interest rates start rising. In the meantime, we're focusing on what we can control, which is the competitiveness of the New Zealand economy, and our 300 initiatives in that respect are set out in the business growth agenda.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Given that exports have barely moved as a percentage of GDP in the period since he was appointed, how will his goal of exports at 40% of GDP be achieved under what he himself has called, quotes, the highest rolling average exchange rate since World War II? Honourable
Bill English.
Mr Speaker, well, under the circumstances, we actually haven't done too badly. I agree. The high exchange rate is a headwind to a rebalancing of the economy. And the other significant headwind is going to be the rebuild of Christchurch, where very substantial resources that may have been invested in the externally focused sectors are going to be invested in rebuilding Christchurch, but that's something that we have to do. In the long run, our focus on getting the government's books under control, improving the delivery of the efficiency of the 30% of the economy the government controls, and focusing on competitiveness of our businesses compared to offshore, including Australia, is going to lead to an improvement in our export performance.
Supplementary question, Paul Goldsmith.
To the Minister, what reports has he received showing that businesses are becoming more confident and investing for growth despite the headwinds caused by the high New Zealand dollar?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, there are a number of such reports which show the resilience of New Zealand businesses who recognise that an increase in the exchange rate is effectively an increase in the living standard of most New Zealanders. And those reports include the NZIER's quarterly survey of business opinion, which shows business optimism at the highest level since March 2010. The latest monthly economic indicators show the outlook for the economy is looking more positive, and the BNZ Business New Zealand Performance of Manufacturing Index remained positive in March and just off a 12-month high. Of course, if the exchange rate remained elevated at levels of 86 or 87 cents against the US dollar, that would be a very significant challenge for New Zealand businesses.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Given that just last week he said the two biggest hindrances to export growth are the Canterbury earthquake and the exchange rate, shouldn't he abandon the primacy given to inflation targeting over other aspects like the exchange rate and do something to address the exchange rate in order to increase exports?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, well, I'd certainly stand by those comments. If the member means, are we going to go printing money, the answer is no, because in the long run that will drive down the living standards of all New Zealanders. And bear in mind, a rising exchange rate means that New Zealanders can buy more with their Kiwi dollar than ever, including petrol, including food. And I don't know what it is the Labour Party's got against rising living standards for New Zealanders.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Why is he steadfastly sticking to a monetary policy regime that was devised before the fall of the Berlin Wall, when so many other countries have moved on and are driving the New Zealand dollar to heights that close down New Zealand businesses and jobs?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, the Labour Party needs to make sure it's not led by the nose by the Greens, as it is on its electricity policies, as we'll find out on Thursday, on this matter of the exchange rate. The member is fooling himself if he believes that there is some easy way of a small open economy picking their exchange rate. You just can't do it in a way that maintains a sensible economy without massive risk to taxpayers. And the member's flown around the world talking to all sorts of experts, but actually conventional monetary policy is most appropriate for the New Zealand economy as it is, and with growth at between 2 to 3%, we're in much better shape than a whole lot of other economies.
Question number 6, Julie Ann Genter.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, does he have a